Welcome to Mentor. I'm Marco Bertozzi.
And I'm Rachel Ford. We are founders of TheZoo.London, the consultant collective and executive search business.
And our podcast is all about sharing hard-earned wisdom from world-class leaders that have been there and done it.
And I'll tell you what, there are insights that you're never going to find in a business book, are
Correct.
they? And I'm going
Which
to
is
say,
good.
yeah, but stuff you can use in real life, which is why we love these conversations. And in today's episode, we speak to Nick Beaton, don't we? And how he transformed ASOS into a global powerhouse. But he really stayed true
The
to...
CEO.
He was the CEO, yeah. But he really was very values-led, very authentic. A story of growth, leadership and learning from failures, I'd say.
Yeah, 100%. And there was some really interesting stuff. And unfortunately, everyone seemed to take the piss out of me, but I, for the first time, discovered what ASOS stood for.
For God's sake.
I know. Well,
Don't do the spoiler now for anybody else that doesn't.
I'm not going to do the spoiler, but that's the second podcast we've done. A lot of people will have discovered what WPP stood for, and now we know what ASOS does.
Yeah, stay tuned to understand what that means. And also, what really sat with me was, and he's a wonderful person, Nick, but he's incredibly culture, like he talks about culture, each strategy for breakfast. And he's a very, his business success has all been around very values driven. And he talks about when you put culture, integrity and your people first, then the performance follows. And I think that's quite hard for an ex-CFO to become a CEO. But he really did say that that's actually really helped ASOS grow, because he talks about this relentless focus on the customer and the people, and even down to some of the policies around miscarriage and menopause. He recognised that
over
60% of his his target audience and his work staff were female. So he listens to understand, and then puts his money where his mouth is. But before that,
let's have a word about our sponsors, shall we? And then we'll get them in. And so Viral Tribe, really, I mean, our journey has been one where we came into creating a podcast where we didn't have a clue, did we? Let's be honest.
We did not.
And Viral Tribe have been...
Should we call them mentors?
Let's call them mentors.
Let's call them. They've been mentors. They've really shown us a way. They've been really supportive. They've helped us with creative ideas, obviously the production and promotion. And it's been, they've held our hand.
And we're part of a stable of some of the biggest creators in the industry.
Yeah, so I think chart-topping shows and branded content.
We'll soon be there, right?
That's where, mentor. We're somewhere there. And today we're in Broadwick Street. There's also another state-of-the-art studio on Wardour Street. And really, from start to finish, they just make the whole process really, I suppose, smooth and stress-free, I'd say. Yeah,
and I think what do they say, the presidents? They say, we endorse this message. We 100% endorse Viral Tribe. So if you're thinking about creating a podcast and using the facilities, or indeed you're a client looking to work with them on branded content, then drop them a line at hello@viraltribe.co.uk, and you're going to get 20% off the first 3 months if you use the word mentor.
I think first 3 bookings, but let's
see bookings.
First 3 months. But anyway, that sounds like an incredible deal. So thank you, Viral Tribe, and let's get Nick in. Today we welcome Nick Beaton. Nick trained as an accountant before moving into retail and nightlife, eventually joining ASOS as CFO in 2009. In 2015, he became CEO and spent 6 years leading the business through explosive growth, from 223 million, Nick, to nearly 4 billion in revenue. Wowzers indeed. Along the way, he championed experimentation, workplace culture, and authenticity in leadership. And after leaving ASOS, he went on to lead Matches Fashion and is now chairman of Secret Sales and various other non-exec roles. Nick, bloody hell, that's quite an intro. Welcome, indeed.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Nick.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you both. Really appreciated you inviting me here.
Yeah, thank you for your time. So you are the first senior marketeer, I think it's fair to say, that we've had on the show. We've had lots of agency and publishers. we're really excited to hear kind of more about your story and your career and journey from there. And maybe just to help people sort of get a feel for your career, it's our wonderful career in 60 seconds, which you clearly don't have to do in 60 seconds, but it just gives people a snapshot and a sort of launch pad for understanding your career.
Sure, I'll go for it. I'll take it back to sixth form. I went to sixth form with a reasonable set of O-levels, as they were then, car crash A-levels, and I'm not going to tell the grades because my children might end up listening, and it loses all my leverage.
Oh, well, I should hope so.
I can tell you my children have all outperformed me ridiculously. I then decided to join the Royal Marines because I thought, what else could I do? And so I'd signed up for that process, and my mum was clearly worried about me. So she said, why don't you try this thing called accounting? And I'd never thought about accounting at all. So I worked in an office in Nottingham, and she introduced me to a neighbour of hers. And this guy became pretty inspirational in my career. And he said to me, look, Beaton, your A-levels are shit, and if you want to be an accountant, you need to up your game. I went, all right, I can do that. And so I resat A-levels and then ended up becoming a chartered accountant. And one of the things he said to me along the way is, you're going to have to live like a monk. Now, there may be a hedonistic group of monks somewhere on the planet. I was more that side than I was a strict monk, but it kind of taught me that I need to just buckle down, have a bit of endeavour and do some work. And I qualified as chartered accountant at KPMG in Nottingham. I then worked in corporate finance, then worked in consulting for 3 or 4 years. I then got haunted by someone asking me a question of, when have you actually ever done this stuff? So I'd spent 8-9 years advising people to do stuff, but I'd never done it. And so I took a job at a retail business in the Northwest called Matalan. And Matalan was going through explosive growth at the time. And I'd always worked in retail clients, and I was obsessed by a machine turning all the time, figuring out customer data, using data to shape decision making. And so I did that for 6-7 years, learnt how to become a retailer. And that was really, really inspiring. At KPMG, no one ever told you to fuck off. At Matalan, if you dropped a bollock, they told you.
Yeah.
And it was quite hard-arsed trading environment, which I loved, grew to love. First thought I'd joined a zoo, but then I grew to love it. Did a couple of years in nightlife, leisure, restaurants, nightclubs, when I became a CFO for the first time for FTSE 250. And then I joined ASOS in 2009. I'd never heard of ASOS when I joined it, and I actually sat next to the CFO at the time at a dinner, and he went back and told Nick Robertson, the founder, I've just met my replacement, which was me. I didn't know any of that. Then I got a phone call from a headhunter, and Nick said, I want to see you, because it was a strange interview process. It was the only interview process where I sat in a room, and ASOS was tiny there, it was about 180 people, where someone was taking the clothes off behind me. And so I was having the interview, and I was like, is someone taking the clothes off? I said, yeah, this meeting room doubles up as the model's changing room.
Oh, nice.
And I went, oh, cool.
Interesting.
And so the studio was very elegant online, but the changing room was a meeting room. So I kind of went, there might be something interesting about this. I was growing more interested in online and digital, and I thought it ought to be something that I had in my locker. So I went, I'm going to give this a go. It was the biggest pay cut I'd ever taken. And my wife turned around and said, look, Nick, if you're going to be happy, give it a go. Because in the previous job, I was getting that Sunday afternoon feeling where I was already thinking about what was going to happen, what I was going to have to face. And I think I had 4 or 5 Sunday lunches where I had not engaged with the family. I just sat there thinking about all the stuff I've got to do. And, my wife sort of said, sort of shit out. This is clearly not working. That's the 4th family lunch that you haven't spoken. Because I was busy, but just not engaged.
Yeah.
So that was, and that was an amazing journey. Spent 13 years there and loved it. Grew as a person, grew as an individual, grew as a professional, learned tons.
Yeah.
And so much serendipity in that
Yeah, so
of that story in terms of people you've met and bumped into, and
serendipity's played a big part in my life.
Yeah.
And serendipity can happen to many people if you're open to receive.
Yes.
If you're not open to receive, you don't notice it. So, I mean, later on, I'll tell you one of the Magpie moments that was totally serendipity.
Yeah. Oh, we can't wait for that one. I mean, already this is going to be a good podcast. Anybody listening to, you're going to have a good 30 minutes with Nick. And apart from obviously, having very good fashion sense, working at ASOS and then obviously matches, there's also working in quite a young environment. And when I did my research, I read a piece that said that you said leaders need to stay forever young to stay relevant.
Yep.
Was there a moment in ASOS where you thought, right, we're going to have to break tradition or do something different to stay fresh? Is there
all
a moment?
The time?
Yeah.
But I'll take it back one. So when I joined Matalan, I was the first person to ever turn up with cufflinks. Because KPMG, you wore suits and you wore a nice shirt and cufflinks. Yeah. And then so I wandered in with a nice suit and cufflinks. They thought I was someone from the bank. And so they weren't going to engage with this new head of business planning. They were like, well, he looks a bit different. And the only thing they could agree on in Matalan was whether you were red or blue, and it was the Liverpool teams, and I was a Man United fan, and the only thing they then was, well, we don't like Man United, and therefore I was a Man United fan wearing cufflinks. It was like, who's that funny fella?
Yeah.
So I had to then quickly change, and the principle being is, if you want to influence, you sometimes have to stand in people's shoes. And you have to think about how they're seeing something. And then you've got credibility. And you actually learn more by doing it. So the first presentation I did, they asked me to solve a business problem. And I went, great, I can show them what I can do. So I did my work, did the pre-presents, went round all the board, did all of that. And went in the car on the Friday, went round stores with the chief exec. And I had job done. This is going to be a breeze. So I then went to Edinburgh with my girlfriend at the time for the weekend and going, I've nailed this, love. Looking forward to the board meeting. Went to the board meeting. I was first on the agenda. I presented exactly what I'd told everyone. The chief exec did something really weird. He sort of took his glasses off, started to go like that. I'm like, this doesn't look good. And he said, I understand that's a long-range sales and stock flow plan, Nick. What are we going to take at Christmas? And this was October. And I went, well, Angus, it wasn't the brief. He said, but I want to know what you think. And I'm like, struggling. He went, all right, let me give you another one. What sort of stock holding do you think we need at Christmas? I'm like, didn't know the answer to that either. So I then watched the meeting just fold in.
God.
And so the retail director, when I told you we didn't need to do all this process stuff, and then the marketing director tried to stand in my corner. My boss was the CFO, went quiet, and the whole thing erupted, and I kind of disappeared into this hole. So I picked my papers up, went to my desk, threw them all in the bin. Thought I better go and speak to the boss because I'm done now. And I went in to see Ian, who's my boss. I went, I'm really sorry about that, Ian. I dropped a big bollock. He went, that was a great meeting. What do you mean it was a great meeting? He said, we need to talk about that stuff. I went, well, what happened? He said, Angus was teaching you a lesson. And the lesson was, there's a machine turning, there's sales happening all the time, there's customers buying stuff. If you're not on top of that detail, then how can you take your long-term planning with credibility? He said, that was the lesson. And I'd gone away for the weekend thinking I'd nailed it. I'd not looked at any sales numbers for the weekend. I'd not looked at any stock numbers. Now, that is a retailer mindset. Be always on top of your numbers. Be always on top of your customer data. And so that was a huge learning. So always look through customers' eyes, always stand in someone's shoes, because then you know the number and you know what's behind the number.
Oh, wow. I can feel that meeting.
Yeah, you can feel the stress, can't you?
Yeah.
I mean, working on the agency side, whenever you work on a retailer of any sort, it's a very different experience. Like that sort of atmosphere translates, doesn't it, to the sort of day-to-day, how you do your job as well. So sounds a bit scary, to be honest, but you obviously got your head around it. And I think one of the other things that maybe, directly related to that was like, if you're not getting things wrong, you're not learning. You obviously, took a sort of key lesson out of that set you up. And that is one of our weekly topics, isn't it, Rach, about your biggest fuck up. So tell us what, and I know it's hard to pick one sometimes, but tell us your biggest fuck up and if you learn anything from it. Not everyone does.
So at ASOS, I had a phrase, and all the team will be common and understand this. It was like, everything's a bump on the road. It's only a bump on the road if you take it as a galvanizing moment to learn from. And so that was always my mindset. So we didn't use the word fuck up.
No.
We did actually. We used to have an annual fuck up list where we legitimised all the things that we'd done wrong, and we put it into the budget process. And it was like, well, if we stop screwing all these things up, we'd be really good. And so I actually legitimised it and made it okay, and created a safe harbour to talk about failures. One of the things that you have a problem with leadership is actually getting to the core of what happens, because teams don't have always that psychological safety to tell you what's gone wrong. They're very quick to tell you what's gone right. Unless you get to the things that you haven't done well, you never really move the needle. So to answer your question, I'm going to tell you one slightly amusing. And this was I was CFO, and I got a phone call from Nick, the founder, going, Nick, I can't make a meeting on Friday. He said, will you do it? I said, sure. Where is it? He says, Downing Street. I went, whoa. I went, what are you talking about? He says, oh, retail stuff, you'll be fine. I went, right, okay, cool. So I found my mum. My mum was excited. My mum went, well, if you meet the Prime Minister, will you ask him this? I'm like, Mum, it's not that kind of meeting, love. So we did all of that. I went in, went down. So Nick then said, take your passport. I went, yeah, okay, I took my passport. So I took my passport, went into the security guards on the side, and there's a couple of lads with guns, and did all the scan. And I said to the one at the end, I said, which door do I go into? And he went, you see that black door there? You might have seen it on the news. That's the door, because I'd assumed you went through a side entrance. So he went in, I walked around all the staircase with all the Prime Minister's pictures on. And I walked in there, all the great of good of retail were in there, and marketing and brand. And I'm like, oh, shit, he didn't tell me any of this. Looked at the agenda, and I'm like, oh my God. So I skulked out the way. I thought, I'll just get a coffee and I'll get through it. And I got a coffee on a saucer. I hadn't put it on the saucer correctly. And I turned round to my left, and there was a door that came out, clearly went to the Prime Minister's apartments. And I turned round, and I went like that, and I knocked a cup of coffee over the then Prime Minister. And I looked up and went, oh, shit.
Of all of the people to pour coffee on.
That was not a safe corner. And he had coffee on his shirt.
Oh, no.
He looked at me as if I was, who's this?
We should ask which Prime Minister.
That was David Cameron.
Right, David Cameron.
And he looked at it and then smiled and was very polite. And so I was already nervous. Then I was heightened. So the table was a long one like this. I sat at the end. I thought, I'm just going to sit down here, and I'm not going to cause any more damage. And then the chairman of the BRC was rabbiting about future retail trends, going through key issues for the Prime Minister. He had a couple of ministers there. And then that was in Cheshire, And he turned around and he went, what we really need to embrace is digital. And I think Nick will be able to elaborate. And at that point in time, I was midway through a bacon sandwich, and tomato ketchup had gone down my shirt. And then the whole table turned left where I was sat, including the Prime Minister. And I don't know what he was thinking, but he had that look of going, what's this clown going to add now? He's already spilled coffee on me, and now he's got tomato ketchup on his shirt. And I was like, anyway, I have no idea what I said, but it seemed to work. And then, and one of your previous guests, Martin Sorrell, I walked out with Martin. He picked me up on some of the data because he's very data. He was like, Nick, I'm not sure some of those data points were correct. I didn't recognise some of them. I went, good point, Martin. What I really meant was this, and this. Anyway, so that was it. So
it's always there, isn't he?
I guess the point is, you sometimes have to put yourself in uncomfortable decisions, get through it, and realise it ain't that bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people. I remember getting some advice very early on, and it was really sort of basic advice, but chimed with me, where they said, you always get through it. like, because it's work. It's not life and death. It's work. And it can feel really bad. And especially when you're starting, earlier on in your career, it can feel like the end of the world. But then you look back and you go, yeah, I got through that, and I got through that, and I got through that. And it's just, it's learning from those different situations to help you get through. And I think the difference is, I'm interested from whether it's Matalan or ASOS or anything else, like there's so many, I guess you made a lot of decisions that were very much kind of at scale, right? You're dealing with millions of customers and making decisions about that. Like, what was your route to making decisions about what to go with, what not to go with, what to experiment? How did you think about that?
I learned this through working with the team at ASOS, and I developed a mental model for making decisions. So obsess about the customer experience, obsess about the impact on the people. I knew I could make financial decisions, but financial decisions without figuring out the customer impact, the brand impact, the people impact don't work. So that was the mental model I adopted. So what's this do to the customer proposition? Our plan here is to build an unstoppable customer proposition where customers just want it. And then I developed that into product's your best marketing. So make sure the product is awesome. Price is the next part of the product. Then the presentation's got to be the next part of the product. And then we experimented with it. So the old rules were you put a body in a dress, the dress sells. You give the model hair and makeup in the style or the aesthetic of the dress, it sells. You put a foot in a shoe, it sells. And then we developed how you style, how the aesthetics behind it. Because people don't just buy the product, they buy what you're presenting. And then they go, I like that.
Yeah.
So we played around and experimented all with that. We had data behind every single one. We knew the top selling models, top selling guys, and we played with all of them. And so in menswear, there was a guy we found on Newquay Beach with a lifeguard. You put him in activewear, it sells all day long. You put him in a suit, doesn't work. And then there was Billy, who was a roofer and had tattoos all over him. He was a street guy. You put him in hoodie, jeans, rolled his jeans up, it's just gone. And then in the bodycon dress era, there was someone called Jamie Guns. Jamie put her in a bodycon dress, it sold all day long, you can't get enough. So we learned how styling, aesthetic, presentation became your best marketing. Then it was all about user journey. So we experimented on user journey. How do we ensure 100% of the people coming in maximize the sales, something called conversion. So when we started that journey at ASOS, conversion was 2%. When we finished, it was 7%. So that's still 93% of customers not buying something. So you drill in the user journey all the time, moving around the page, the website, moving around the buttons. We're experimenting with the add to bag button. So the add to bag button, it's still like that today on ASOS, was green. And so before that, it wasn't green, it was black. And then we did yellow because Amazon do yellow. And then we went, let's try the colors. So it's super obvious. Green is programmed to go.
Yeah.
And so put it there. So you can see that mentally, go, there's a buy, green. So all of those things change the conversion, the user journey. So we used data, we used customer eyes to play around. So that was the mental model.
And it sounds like you broke it down. So even though it's a big, customers are in the millions and there's a lot of scale, you're really breaking it down and experimenting, as you go.
And what I learned with ASOS, and it was from Nick, is the founder was relentless focus on the customer, relentless focus on the impact on the people, and always be restless. And so if you do those things, you're never content. And we had to change the business every 3 months because it was growing like wildfire.
Yeah.
So it was those three things kept us restless.
Yeah. Go on.
I was just going to say, because, sorry, I know I've asked a lot of questions, but I went to an event yesterday and Claire Enders of Enders Analysis was talking. And one of the questions was about AI and how agencies are using AI and all that kind of stuff. And it was interesting her response. She's like, listen, they just need to rein all that sort of showboating back. What they need to care about is the fact that all the clients are frankly, tearing their hair out, worrying about Trump tariffs, worrying about their distribution chain. And I just thought it was a really interesting and listening to, you know, you're thinking it's all about the customer, it's all about probably distribution, it's all about service, and how important that focus is.
Yeah, but AI is an accelerator in all of those.
Yeah.
So as every piece of technology is. And so if you think about the construct of a website, they haven't changed for 10, 15 years. And if you think about the construct of styling, it's people with cameras doing styling. Yeah. Well, I'm looking at many AI tools now that go, well, actually, that's pretty good. So we experimented them years ago, and a fabric on a body through AI didn't work. You could tell it was clunky. It wasn't inspirational. And we tried it with sunglasses first, where you could put a picture of yourself and put your sunglasses on. But you looked a bit like the Terminator. So no one's buying any sunglasses when you look like a Terminator. And humans around fashion are innately vain. You've got to be a better version of yourself. And that sells the product better. And so, but the models I'm looking at now are imperceptible and pretty good, and the cost is tiny.
Yeah.
So those things will change campaigns, social media campaigns, and on-site e-com assets for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's affecting everything. But as you say, it's a co-pilot. It accelerates things and makes things better, does it, and quicker.
Yeah.
But coming back to your, I suppose, that relentless focus on the customers, the product, I wanted to touch on two things really in terms of progressive and making quite bold decisions. One, around buying Topshop in the Selfridge.
Yep.
And then the other one, actually, which I'll come back to at the end, is actually you can tell that you were such a people leader. When you left LinkedIn, I just LinkedIn, when you left ASOS, I remember your LinkedIn post was just full, gushing of people. So you obviously did have that relentless focus on people. So I want to come back to some of your policy making around menopause and etc. But if I come back to the business decision around, I suppose, the focus on the product and the audience, is that why Topshop was like a perfect marriage of it was just feel like a no-brainer?
So it was almost a 360 moment for us. So early 2009-10, I mean, ASOS was started by Nick when he observes the inspiration was when Friends was aired and in the late 90s, the calls into the network that published it was going, where do I get my hair done like Rachel, and where can you get the coffee shop lamp? So Nick was going around about 2000 when he founded ASOS, and it wasn't ASOS then, it was entertainment marketing. It's going, how can I use this thing called Tintinet to power human discovery? And so that's where we started it. And the first loads of products were eclectic. It was like Big Brother furniture. It was the Bad Mother wallet from Pulp Fiction. It was Robbie Williams tiger pants. It was the long trench coat from The Matrix. And so it's all this as seen on screen. We then went on a journey going, maybe we aggregate as many products as we can. No, we don't. We build our own product. Let's do that. So the second buyer came from Topshop. Her name was Laurie Penn, who I've met, delightful. She was like, guys, we're quite good at buying dresses, and you're asking me to buy this eclectic stuff. So we'll buy some dresses then. And so let's do some dresses. So we had a debate about what to call the brand, because it was as seen on screen then. And as seen on screen didn't fit into the label very well. So someone went, let's call it ASOS, which was the first letter from all of them. And many people claim that moment of genius, but it was embryonic. And said, cool, we'll call it ASOS. Her first range of product was seen on Atomic Kitten, and they were doing a a BBC festival, and the DJ went, girls, you look great. And they said, yeah, I've got this stuff on a website called ASOS. Sales boomed. So then we were like, should we get more brands? Yes, let's get a load of brands. And we almost binned ASOS, the brand. And then we brought a load of people in from Topshop to give us some product capability and credibility. And they went, look, guys, this is good. I quite like the margin because I was CFO then. Yeah, margin's great. Let's do that. And they went, no, we can make it really special. So we went, we'll make it better than Topshop. If they've got 10 dresses at £20, we want 30 at 18. So we had Topshop in our lens. Give us that fresh and credibility. Give us all of that. Then we were into, well, let's take down the Topshop customer. We want the Topshop customer. They want to come to ASOS. We're going to have them covered from going out, working out, to hanging out. Every product need you want, we'll go. So then we finally spent years with Philip Green. We finally got Topshop on site, and then we got Topman, and then we got Miss Selfridge. And so then the opportunity came to buy it. Now, I knew during COVID there was some opportunities in the way they were managing themselves that would give us an opportunity. So I teed up with a number of advisors. If you happen to be this, these are the 5 questions we need. And we were selling Topshop already. So I didn't know which advisor it was, but I dropped it with a number. We then got the phone call going, okay, we've been appointed. It was during COVID. We did the diligence from our bedrooms. We did all that work in 6 weeks. We integrated it in 6 weeks, and we relaunched it straight away. And because I'd already got a load of data, because we were selling about £120 million worth at that point in time, I knew what it would be. And so that was a full 360 moment, from the first buyer from Topshop building ASOS design that became the largest fashion brand never to have a store, to then us trying to take it down by using them as inspiration.
And by the way, I should think that hardly anyone knows what ASOS stands for.
Do you not know? No, I've seen on screen. That. Oh, dear.
Yeah, but I'm not
He's more impressive.
I was just thinking, well, it made me think... Is that what
you've discovered? Is that what you've discovered on
this
podcast?
It made me think about WPP, and no one knows what that stands for. But yeah.
You might not have bought many dresses from Topshop.
I haven't been a big customer. Maybe that's where I've gone wrong.
And then we ended up acquiring it. And so the work that the team have done now, I was a bit cross that post me leaving, they hadn't done it. But the work that the team now, I texted the team a couple of weeks ago, the catwalk in Trafalgar Square, the content around it, the product, I just thought, right, that's it. They've now got the moment again. Yeah. I would love them to have weaved in some sustainability angle. That would have been even better if. But the fashion, the presentation of what they've done now, I texted the team and went, well done. That's what it should be.
Yeah. And that's a 360. Wow. I mean, that's it. But that was a bold moment. I have to say, though, because I do know your wife and kids quite well, that part of your Philip Green, I suppose, romance was going on his yacht, wasn't it? Weren't you on a family holiday?
Yeah, God. So we had just bought it, and we ended up going on holiday, and I was sat by the pool, and and Philip used to text me quite regularly, and my wife went, "What are you doing?" I said, "Look, let me just deal with these texts." And she went, "Who is it?" I said, "It's Philip." And she said, "Nick, we're on holiday." So I responded to Philip, and then he phoned me and said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm in Greece." And I heard a kerfuffle in the background. He said, "I'm in Greece." and then my wife was looking at me, and he went, "Right, meet me tomorrow at the following." And so the kids had got out of the pool, and I went, "What should we do?" She said, "I'll come pick you up and we'll go on the boat." And so the kids had already Googled the boat, and Rosemary was going, "What are you doing?"
They do, yeah.
"What are you doing?" I said, "Love, let's spend the day on the boat with Philip. It'd be great." And my son went to Rosemary, "Look at the boat, love, Mum, it'd be great." Anyway, we had a lovely afternoon on the boat.
I bet you did.
Yeah. You had to hand your mobile phones in there, I remember.
Yes, we did.
No photos. And I did ask, my first question was Kate Moss on there? But obviously that was back in the day. And what a shame she wasn't on there. But I know not many people on this podcast have been on Philip Green's boat. No. But amazing. And then just really finally, just on that, you're progressive and you've always kind of led the way in terms of even down to policies. What made you do the menopause and also miscarriage leave way ahead of anybody even thinking about it? What led you? Is that because it's just that relentless focus on the people? If you keep
but there was things before then. We were the first stretch marks, and we were the first not to touch up the models, and because you could do that ages ago. It was be authentic.
Yeah.
And so when you get yourself into the mindset that culture eats strategy for breakfast, culture's nothing without tone and policy from the top, and culture's nothing without the people that you lead. And those decisions become sensible. Fashion's one of those businesses that is probably 60% female. And so you have to lean in and be progressive and go, there's going to be life issues that affect your people. You need them to feel comfortable that the organisation's got them covered. So it was a natural discussion.
Yeah, I mean, natural, but didn't
Yeah, you didn't
it
have
obviously
to do
didn't
it.
come to a lot of
No.
people. So
No, exactly. And also, I think then, because I think I've also read that you said that our values should drive profit, which when you've got those tougher decisions to make on the table, is that even more important to come back to what your values are as an organisation in terms of your decision making?
So if you use a set of words, then your team can call you out on them. And if you don't stand behind them, they think you're full of shit.
Yeah. And
So
that's the authenticity bit,
that's
is it?
authenticity. So when I took over as CEO, I did, and the first meeting I did after the stock exchange stuff was a meeting with 17-year-olds with an organisation called Arrival Education, which was about bright kids on the side of the tracks who had a point of view. So I did that meeting, and they asked you much better questions than the board. And so I sat there and went, wow, that was a good way to start. I then did a couple of listening groups to the team in segments about 50. And I said, I want us to be a values-led organisation. And so there was this lady called Amy Williams, and she said, all right, Nick, I want to test you on that. I'm brave. And so if you create a safe harbour and a psychological safety for the team, you learn more. And she said, I've heard you talk about that. I said, I approve. I said, I've got a problem though. She said, what's that, Amy? She said, and there was 50 of her colleagues. She said, she was a swimwear buyer. She said, I can buy this bikini and it's 55% gross margin. And I know the fabric, the working standards, the factory. I can stand behind the integrity of how it's been produced. I went, okay. And she said, I can get you this one where I'm not sure about the labour standards. I'm not sure about the fabric, but it's a 65% margin. Which one do you want? Whoa.
As the CFO.
Yeah, well.
Well, a CEO then. Yeah.
Right, so as a CFO, I loved margin. Yeah. As a CEO, I love margin. But as a CEO, then got to learn principles and values. And if you stand and say, I want to be values-led, someone's going to test you. And so I kind of went by myself sometime, Amy, which one do you want? She went, I didn't ask that question. I wanted which one you want. I went, good on her.
Yeah.
Right, and so I went, how long will you take to get the margin up? She said, well, if I sell it well, do this, the following, then it should take us 2 or 3 years. I went, go get that one. Now, I knew I had a problem because the following day, the merch director was at my desk giving me grief, but it was the right thing. And then we then started something that had been an early principle. We call it fashion with integrity. And it was like all the aspects of fast fashion, we need to be able to be in a position where we can stand behind how we're making something, stand behind something, and hopefully influence the way people make product going forward. So we use that as a disruptor to the brand. We use culture as a disruptor to the brand. We use technology to disrupt the brand. We use marketing to disrupt people's thought process and build a brand. Use technology to do it. So all of those things going, how can we use this to change customer behaviors, shape the way they shop, shape the way they think? So that became a way of us experimenting through all of it.
God,
and
this
I
is
think
a real masterclass.
I think it's fascinating when on the outside it looks like you're the CEO. You make these decisions, which, to be fair, are not standard decisions. Did you come up against a lot of resistance? How did you navigate that sort of?
Well, so I told you I became a better person during ASOS, and you learn a lot from the customer data. You learn a lot from the team, and you learn a lot from influencers. The team wanted me to do this.
Yes.
So I didn't want to be the barrier. I wanted to be the facilitator. And you're bearing in mind the average age of the team at that point was 27. I went, they are closer to the customer than I am.
Yeah.
They're closer to the zeitgeist of how people are thinking. My role here is to actually make it work and commercialize it. So it was one of those that became quite easy. If you listen to the customer, listen to your team, that's where you get your best ideas. And that was what I did.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think it just seems simple on paper, but I'm sure in reality it wasn't.
It's a mental model. And so you don't do your best decisions in the boardroom. Yeah, the boardroom will be how you facilitate the best ideas that come into the boardroom. Yeah, and so I learned from customer and people. I corroborated it with data. So I was strong at data, because that was a finance training, analytical training. Applying those two things became part of how I built the organisation.
Fantastic.
Yeah, amazing.
Well, we unfortunately don't. There's so much that you've done in that 12 years or so, but we're going to sort of go to the when you left there, like that after 12 years and very successful 12 years. How did you find that coming out of the business? Was it was it relief? How did you transition through, coming out of somewhere that you'd obviously very established?
So no one's asked me that. It's a real struggle because you go from I had a relationship with ASOS, right? So it was kind of, I was fully engaged. I was looking at the website all day long. I was on my phone looking at the numbers all day long. All of a sudden that stops, and then so it's almost like someone's pulled the rug from under your feet.
Yeah.
Even though it was I was part of the decision, you didn't realise what you've just done. And it's a compelling nature of what we're doing. It's pace, it's energy, and so the coming to terms with the come down was quite hard work. And then and one of the things lots of us end up doing is you end up becoming defined by your role, and you forget to be defined by you. And so I didn't realise I was defined by the role I did, rather than I had to then refine, actually this is what I'm about, not about this is the job I do. And that was quite hard to decompress from.
Well, as Rachel knows, I wrote a blog.
He did.
It's on our website, actually. If you visit TheZoo.London, a blog called "Are You Defined by Your Role?" Because when I left Spotify, which was a high-profile brand, it felt like you suddenly feel like, oh, where's what am I now? And it's something I ask. We know a lot of people that have left after a decade at Google or a decade, and when you bump into those people, I always say, how are you? And it's funny, people often default to the money. They're like, well, they looked after me. If it was that sort of exit, I'm like, no, I'm not interested. You're probably fine for money. It's like, how are you suddenly finding yourself without your skin, without your...
It's not about money.
No.
It's about purpose, self-belonging, self-value, valuing yourself, finding yourself again, because you do get defined by what you do.
Yeah.
And Rachel's question earlier was about values driving profit. So I actually went purpose drives profit. So the why we do something, we commercialize the why to generate profitability. It's the purpose that's most important. And so I learned that. This is my Magpie moment.
Yeah.
I was at a Google event, and it was I was lucky enough to go to the Google events because it was a rarefied world of CEOs, important people, and there's a couple of day event every year, Google Zeitgeist, where the speakers that are established are unbelievable.
Yeah.
It ranges, and they're thought-provoking. It ranges from Martina Navratilova one year to Nicolas Sarkozy another year to Lewis Hamilton to Amal Clooney, and then some guy who paints murals on the side of freight container ships, of all the containers, when you only see that mural twice. When it leaves when the ferry boat leaves, or and when it arrives, and then and so I was like, wow. So his endeavour, his focus on producing something that's seen twice was unbelievable. And then people who were curing cancer and people doing all that stuff. So this particular day, Martina Navratilova had spoken, Amal Clooney had spoken, and Nicolas Sarkozy had spoken. And these are super elegant, smart individuals on top of all their craft. And then a 23-year-old black woman turned up, and she was 5 foot something or other, and she had her cards, and she started to shake. And I had a bit of a gulp going, oh shit, I hope she's good. Christ, I wouldn't want to follow that lot. And then she started to tell a story. She was from Sierra Leone. When she was 13, her village was burnt down by so-called freedom fighters. She watched her mother being raped and then killed, and then she watched her father being killed. And then she was gathered up and went to a compound and with other girls because they took the boys off to train them to fight, and they put the girls in a compound. She was one of in this compound. They were all dehumanized and given a number, and she was number 27. And the 27 the number was an allocation process. So if there was not enough water to go round, it wasn't 1/27th. They cut it off at 10. 11 to 27 didn't get it. Same with food, same with clothing. So they formed little gangs to give themselves emotional security and support. She told the story, and I was crying.
Yeah.
And she then said one day, she put her hand through the compound and picked up a magazine that was blowing past. It was a fashion magazine. The fashion magazine had a ballerina in it. And the ballerina looked fit, healthy, well-fed, gorgeous. And she went, that's everything I want to be. And so she kept it. She tore the page out, put it in her underwear. Many years later, she was liberated by an American foster family, and they moved to Holland. And she was then discriminated again because mum and dad went, what do you want to do? She said, I'd like to be a ballet dancer like this girl. So I said, you'll be a ballet dancer. She went to the first ballet school, and she was told, because she had the wrong body shape, she said, we normally don't find people of this origin being the ones with the most endeavour. So we're a bit underfunded. I'm not sure this is for your daughter. Horrific after what she's been through. Mum and dad then said, you're going to be a ballet dancer. So she did. She became the principal ballet dancer for the Royal Dutch Opera, and which is an amazing story of endeavour and focus. Anyway, her catchline was this: never be too busy to notice the things that might change your life. And that was the magazine, given what she'd been through, right? So I was totally moved by her humility and focus. And I went up to talk to her at the end, and there's no name badges at this event. You know, I'm 6'3", and she was 5 foot something. I've been crying, and so God only knows what I look like. And so I started asking her about a story, and she told me. And then I ran out of words, and I just said to her at the end, "Love your outfit, looks fantastic." So she then went, "I got it from ASOS."
No.
Now I didn't know that. She didn't know who I was. I went, "Really?" She went, "Yeah." So it gives me the confidence to tell my story. Now, who doesn't buy fashion to give yourself a boost or to express how you're feeling? I went back down to the audience and I'm like, I need to think about that. And I was a bit stunned by it. So we talked about serendipity earlier.
I was going to say that.
Right.
Don't close yourself off to. Yeah.
So I sat down, went to the drinks do that evening. I went up to her and said, introduced myself. She had another ASOS dress on, skater dress, looked great. I gave her my card and I said, "Can you come in and tell your story?" And so we brought her in. It was the first masterclass series we did. And I then built lots of masterclasses where I did 2 or 3 a year, inviting interesting people to tell their story. Sports stars, netball players, rugby players, football players, journalists, whatever. And so we then anchored that story when the ASOS I needed a purpose to bind the organisation together. So I started off with values, but values wasn't working. We had mission to be the world's #1 fashion destination for fashion-loving 20-somethings. We had a set of values, the authentic, brave, creative, and then we added discipline. We needed a purpose to bring people to work. The purpose is why you do what you do. Yeah, and so I needed a purpose. There it was. So the purpose became to give people the confidence to be whoever they want to be, expressed through our daily goals of great experiences, great product. And that became our internal focus, which then for our customers, and our customer focus and our people focus, which then gave us legitimacy to develop all the things you asked me earlier. So give people the confidence to be whoever they want to be. Doesn't matter whether you buy product, you ship product, you write code, you're here to give customers that purpose. And all the values laddered behind it. And that was a moment that shaped how we were building the organisation.
God.
And I think, you know, what's amazing about when you hear a story, you know, when you hear the sort of that whole journey of how you got from there to there, then you can understand how powerful the values are, and the values, and then actually making decisions gets easier because you've got those really clear values that people are buying into. And because I think sometimes people can be a bit cynical about values and company ethos and all this sort of stuff, but when it really comes from the heart, then it makes it much simpler to make all your decisions.
Even companies that failed or have values put on the wall
Yeah.
Values don't live on the wall; they live in decision making and day to day.
Exactly. Yeah.
So start with your why. So it was, I want to be purpose driven, mission led, guided by values. And the values be authentic, be brave, be creative. Authentic, whatever authenticity is for you, bring the best version of you. Because the customer deserves it, the brand deserves it, so does your team. If you're going to be brave, never be afraid to turn left when others turn right. If it doesn't work out, we go the other way. If it's being creative, whatever discipline you're in, be creative about what you're doing, how you're solving it. And the last one, be disciplined. Whatever it is you do, this is not discipline, death by PowerPoint, death by KPI. This is honing your craft. If you're a sports star, you spend 90% of your time training and preparing, 10% performing. In business, we look for people to perform at 110%, but no time to hone their craft. So that then shapes a set of policies and thought processes about training, giving people room to breathe, to become the best version of their discipline. So that was the framework we applied. Once you have that framework, that inspiration layer, your first question is, does it fit our purpose? Are we going to land it through our values? Does it fit our mission? Okay, what's the numbers?
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask actually, because you talk about leadership being a privilege. What do you want leaders to do today? I think it's that. I think it's about having the purpose. We're getting out of time, and I'm concerned about Nick's time. And it's in our little pod here, I feel like we have gone on a journey, and often we've found that our guests have been quite reflective of that journey. And I'd say from all that you've learned from, I suppose, like taking risks or your values or what's driven you, if you were to go back to that lad at KPMG, what would the one piece of advice that you would, and I think probably more on a personal than a business level, what one piece of advice would you go back to Nick aged 25 and go, if you do this through your career, you're going to be all right, kid?
It's interesting. I think I'd first say to him, don't worry, it turned out all right.
Yeah.
And
it did turn out all right.
It's not pushing. But I mean, that might have, I was quite pushy. I was quite chippy on all of those. And I had massive imposter syndrome and still do. I still dream about the maths exam I've got tomorrow morning.
Yeah, me too.
So it's channeling all those things. So I think I'd say, don't worry, it turned out all right. Trust yourself, back yourself, work hard doing it. And there's moments where you have to pivot and you have to take a couple of risks. Nothing's ever forever. You can always pivot. But the best advice I've stolen, and I use this with young people that I talk to, is in your 20s, surround yourself with talented individuals, whatever it is, and learn from them. In your 30s, experiment with a few things that you found yourself to be good at. In your 40s, double down on it. And in your 50s, don't forget to give back and share to others.
Yeah. Do you know what we've heard it on this podcast? Learn, earn, and return.
Yeah, that's the same. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
That's more succinct, Rach.
Well, well, that is amazing.
She's showing you up there.
No.
She is.
No, it's not. We didn't even get onto
Imagine working with her.
Yeah, I know. Freaking nightmare. But I mean, the thing is, I feel like I think we might have to have you back, Nick, because honestly, I really feel that was an absolute masterclass. You've everything that you've given is like nugget after. I mean, absolutely fantastic. Yeah. We didn't even get onto Robbie Williams and all that sort of stuff. We'll have to have you back because there's a lot of, and also even, do you know, Spandau Ballet was at Nick's 50th.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Listen, we're going to have to come back as you do. Now we're going to say, yeah, you did all right. It turned out incredibly well. You've got an amazing family, an amazing impact you've made on the world, and we'll have to get you back. But thank you so much, Nick.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, both.
Thank you. Thank you. Sadly, that's all we've got time for, Marco. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to Mentor and share it with someone navigating their own leadership path. And if you need a little more wisdom in your business, then be sure to come to TheZoo.London for exec search and consulting support.
Mentor is a Viral Tribe entertainment production. Don't forget to give us a follow on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Join us next time for more pearls of wisdom from Mentor.